Yo, GBA Tech people, it is me, itzTurbo. We are here for the week 11. I can't count still. I genuinely can't count. Bird, what week is it?
Yeah, Turbo, if it was you, you'd know it's week 12 because we're counting higher each week. Last week we counted to 11. This week you counted to 12. Next week you counted to 13.
Okay, cool.
But
cool.
It is week 12.
Right, so it's week 12 of the GBA Power Rankings. We are coming into the last two Power Rankings of the season, I do believe. And Bird, why don't you just...
Week 12?
Oh God, I can't count.
So, Turbo can't count, but it's alright. Hello, welcome back to Power Rankings. It's Bird.
But anyway, let's jump without further ado, let's jump straight into these Power Rankings. Bird, since you like talking a lot, why don't you talk about your number 16 first?
Alright, my number 16 is the boy Aaron. Speaking of Aarons, so there are three things certain in life: death, taxes, and Aaron brings Pelipper, Katana, Ludicolo, Mega Swampert, Mimikyu, Kingdra each week. As previously stated on last week's video, there is a bit of a GBA sanction going on by the PR dude being myself due to his lack of uploads. Also, his loss to Coach Z. I can't put him high, unfortunately. Especially when you consider that one of his two wins was an extremely haxy affair over Joey last time they played. This time, however, it was not the case. He really struggled to get any momentum, and it was really looking like another David v Goliath performance. And then the battle started. Joey absolutely took domination from the get-go, and he really struggled with the dynamic of Joey's team. He got red every single time, like, for example, not Ludicolo, the Licky going for the flamethrower on the Kartana switch in, the Thunder Gyarados outcoming the Mega Pelipper, not the Mega Pelipper, but the regular Pelipper. And then Aaron's prep has been throwing off his opponents due to the fact that they perceive him to change up his team each week, where I think he's brought the same team for the last 3 or 4 weeks now. I haven't noticed any real change. And unfortunately, I can't rank someone any higher than 16th when that's going on.
That's fair enough. I've got Aaron like a tad higher. I still have Coach Z, or as some people call him, Coach L. I don't know why, I wonder why, but at the bottom. Last week I did say he has to beat the teams around him in order for me to prove to me that he should be moving up. Unfortunately, he did not do that with an opportunity against Crimson. It was a winnable game for him, but unfortunately Crimson literally dominated the entire momentum of the game in terms of certain plays, and it didn't really look like Coach Z was going to get any further in the game. With the plays he was making. He could have brought it back late game with the Manaphy, but Crimson had that clutch priority in the end game to take through. So Coach L has had a disappointing season this season, and I am keeping him at the bottom of the power rankings because I believe he has played overall the worst out of all of the teams. Bird, who have you got slightly above that?
I have 15, I have Coach Z, and there's recently been a conspiracy theory going on amongst a few of the Discords I'm in. There's been a lot of speculation. I said last time it could possibly be Blunder, but I'm convinced it might be Rizzy Power. 0-8 in the first season of the big leagues to win week 9. I think Coach Z might be Rizzy Power. And the thing about this week was, as you said before, it's hard to rank someone higher when they're not beating the teams above them or around them. And I think Coach Z, I don't know why he brought the Furo. The Z mirror move was a cool tech, but I thought it was a misclick when he clicked it in the game, the mirror move. I think that where he's really struggled is the damage output of some of his mons. So, for example, things like Furo, which are meant to break, don't really do their role. And that's where he's really struggled. However, I do hope Coach Z or Rizzy Power, and I think that's why there's a Z for Rizzy. That's why it's Coach Z, Rizzy. But I think what makes it hard for me is, why don't they upload the weekly recap from last week where they talk about Coach Z win? That's the only positive going on for him at the moment.
I mean, I secretly heard that Coach Z managed to successfully take down that weekly recap because he didn't want his tactics to be exposed. But again, just another conspiracy theory.
This is Coach Z's right-hand man, Coach Y. And as you can see, Coach Z and I have successfully double-bluffed these two silly power rankers into ruining their joke by actually making the weekly recap go up yesterday. Watch out for more evil deeds from the both of us. Mwahaha.
But in at number 15, I do have Aaron and the Melbourne Rotoms. Now, like you said before, there's only a few things certain in life, and that is death, taxes, and Aaron bringing the same team this week. He might as well have live streamed the game by the way that Joey was reading him. It's quite unfortunate, but I mean, when you play a very, very, very experienced singles player against a not very experienced singles player, no matter how much VGC experience you're going to have, Joey is going to have the upper hand every single time. I think it proved it on that turn where he was just like, I'm clicking Thunder, this Pelipper's coming in. And it's a play that Aaron didn't even have to make. Like, he could have kept the Pelipper in the back and used it to set up Rain on a free turn, but he decided to try and get that advantage with a switch he might have thought was a really, really good play, but Joey knew exactly what he was doing, just clicked Thunder on that turn as well. So there's not much praise for Aaron this season. The only reason I have Aaron above Columbus Chew is because of the consistency throughout the season. I still think he's played mildly better than Coach Z, especially when you look at experience compared to games played as well. So Coach Z is obviously an experienced coach. You can sort of feel that as well, especially with a few of the rumors that are floating around. All of those players are singles experienced players, but the Melbourne Rotors are fresh in the league and still putting out more consistent performances than someone who we think is reasonably experienced. That's why I've got him at number 15.
I was going to say Aaron's team prep has been the most consistent this season.
It's a good shout. I mean, it's as in consistently the same, but it's still consistent. So why don't you jump into your number 14?
My number 14 is as smooth as jazz person in the GBA, being Necro Stevo, who had probably the most hype introduction to his week against my good pal Tom Z. Well, who would have thought that 1 week Necro Stevo wouldn't bring sand offense? However, he did capitalize on Tom's lack of a ghost type with the Diggersby this week, putting in a lot of damage output. The turn 1 walk-on mirror coat Araquanid was a really good bring. The other thing I really enjoyed about Necro's video this week was the way he rationalizes with the pokey facts that come in the middle of his video. You can really start to understand his rationale, and I think that given him some more time, and it's unfortunately the season's over next week, because I think he could muster up a few more wins, considering how consistent he's been. The use of Hawlucha, I think from memory it was SD sub with Citrus Berry. The way in which that he uses Hawlucha to effectively control the end game. I remember when the draft was announced and he did pick up Hawlucha, a lot of people were skeptical of Hawlucha, mainly because he didn't have a terrain to, excel the process of how well Hawlucha does. But I think he's used it really well. And another week where he's brought Rotom Heat and Togekiss, which is, becoming a bit of a pattern for Necro himself. The smoothest man in the GBA.
Seems like you got a little bit of a man crush on this Necro Stevo, but I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you. I have Necro Stevo in the same position. He did control the end game really, really well with the Hawlucha. It was almost like you read my mind there. I was going to mention the point about when he drafted it so early in the draft, and people were a bit like, whoa, hold on. And this is before Hawlucha became the flavor of the week. Now you're seeing it getting drafted everywhere with terrains and whatever. But this was mildly before that, and he picked it up and he's used it really, really well this season. I don't believe it is his MVP, but I do think in terms of the way he's used it, it is his MVP. And this game is perfect examples of that. He knows how to control a game. He was unlucky last week with one play that set his Hawlucha off. If he'd been a bit more ballsy last week and used his Hawlucha properly, that would have been another game where Hawlucha would have controlled the end game. So I think that just the way he's been using that mon is actually really interesting. And you do make the point of the fact that he has shown airs of consistency or airs of great play, but it's too late in the season to do anything about it. And I think that's true of a couple of other coaches that are coming higher up in the power rankings as well. If they'd done this 3 weeks ago, we could have had a really, really interesting end race to the season. But let's jump into our respective number 13s. And I believe we have the same. Do we have the same, Bird? Who are your number 13?
My number 13 is Tom Z, coach of the San Jose Sharpitos. I know, the meme has to die, unfortunately, of saying Tom's team name wrong. Because ever since I started doing it, he started losing more. And being one of the number 1 San Jose Sharpito fans, it hurts me. Tom hasn't picked up a win since, I perceive, week 5 of the GBA, when he was looking like a playoff contender. This week against Necro Stevo, we saw Necro exploit his draft and his common playstyle. So, for example, the way in which that Tom likes to use Volt Switch to gain priority early doors with the Rotom, so the Araquanid just popped the Mirror Coat turn 1. He did make a very nice play by going into the Sizzle, knowing that he could live. I hope that was a calculated play, at least. He also relies a little bit too much on Lando T, I think, to break, and that pivot core of Sizzle and Sizzle, Road and Wash, and Lando T, where he doesn't really break much of his opponent's team. The real concern I have with Tom is I don't think that this has been an accurate season when it comes to Tom. I've seen Tom really muster up some really good performances in previous leagues and things like that. Like, he beat Greg, for example, in the Bees Knees League. So I think he has the potential to do better coming next season, and I hope he's definitely back for next season. He's definitely my favourite coach to watch. Some of the most raw and honest commentary in the game. And I know that he's probably beating himself up a little bit too much at the moment. And he did say recently he's burnt out from Mons on Twitter. But I think that the best commissioner that I know being the Tom Z, and he will come back firing next season. I know it.
I mean, I've got to agree with you as well. Tom's first play was a calculated play. I was talking to him about the game in the Discord DMs because I'm that boy, and he did say that was his plan going into the game even before that had happened. I think his main error was not keeping up offensive pressure. Instead of trying to put rocks up with Rhyperia, instead of going into Meloetta to keep up that pressure. It's unfortunate he only got 2 Rock Blast hits on the Horlucha to let it get to +2 attack, which wasn't in bullet punch range, which when you'll see uploaded, the Sizzle's named after me, to shout out to Tom for that as well. It's an interesting point you made about Tom's season. I think Tom's had a really, really bipolar season in which he's played some absolutely sick games against some really good coaches. Like the win against Mono early season was a really, really good performance by him. And then late season, he's sort of fallen off. So I do understand that is going to hit you hard, but Tom's just got to keep his head up, keep playing. I understand that he tweeted out on Twitter again about the burnt out Mons, but Crimson did that, and Crimson's been playing like an absolute beast the last couple of games. So maybe Tom will have a late game rejuvenation after a slight burnout like Crimson did. That's what we can all hope, because we do like Tom. He's one of those long-standing GBA members, and as you say, he might be one of the best commissioners in the game, but that's just me talking.
He's the only OG member left from Season 1. Dun, dun, dun.
True. Shout out to the OGs. But we'll move into number 12. I'm going to do my number 12 first because I want to switch it up a bit. At number 12, I got the Montreal Habsols. Now, you guys are like, yo, Turbo, you've got Victorian Shadows too high and you've got Asta too low. And I'm like, whoa, just I've got that vision. I know what's going to happen. I'm 2 games ahead of all of you lot, man. I've got it in my head because I saw the Asta loss coming. I saw the Victorian Shadows win coming. And Asta kind of just didn't bring a check to Nihilego, and it kind of just lost him the game. And that's pretty much Asta's big flaw in this game this week. Ironically, Cosmic Power Low Pony could have helped him out in the matchup. That's just a mild criticism. But the turn 1 Aquatel miss did set him back a lot, and you could tell he was tilted from it on a serious note. But even then, when you have the webs up that the Sash intact Slurpuff was able to do, he's then like 3 turns back in the game, and he has to carry all of that up front alongside being out-prepped by Chimpact purely because he doesn't have a counter to his main offensive threat to his team being the Nihilego. So I think Asta's just set back from turn 1 in this game. I don't think the hacks mattered hugely, and he got 5-0'd because of it, and that's all I can say, really. Who have you got on that level?
I have Crimson Steebad. I think that's his name. So Crimson this season has been a real surprise package. I mentioned earlier on in the video about quality of uploads, and I honestly think Crimson has been one of the most consistent and quality uploads to watch this season. I really enjoy watching his content, and you really start seeing his rationale. And I think with all the leagues he does at the same time, like I think he's in the APA, NPA, anything that has an A at the end of the league, he's probably in. He's pulling a Trev. He's really started to help see a lot of improvements. The game against Coach Z, the use of Kangaskhan was really impressive in the way that he's used it really offensively. He did the exact same thing against Pokeyam. And he's starting to play a really offensive team where it has a real limited recovery option. But he's making the plays to really get into good positions and form out his wins. The only reason I don't have Crimson higher is, yes, the number of wins, but also the fact that 2 of his wins have come against Coach Z. And as you affectionately dubbed him earlier, Coach L. So when looking at that, I believe that it's hard to rank Crimson above Tom. And my first instinct was to actually rank Tom above Crimson because of that factor. But when I realized that Tom hasn't won since week 5, and we've talked about how important form is when we come into these power rankings, a bit of mixture of form, playoff picture, and a bunch of different other factors. I'd had to put Crimson just above Tom because of the fact that, unlike Tom, he's won since week 5.
Interesting. I think that I have Crimson at a slightly higher position than you. And I think we need to just stop, wait a minute, take a minute to say that we need to gas up Crimson a little bit, because I've been saying it. I said it 2 weeks ago. I said it now. I said this man is on a tear. You just wait. Just wait. The man with the sexiest voice in the game, with those glasses and the beard, coming through with a commanding win against Coach Z. Now, it was against Coach Z, and you'd be like, yo, why are you gassing up for a win against one of the lowest ranked teams in the league? And I'm going to be like, okay. Look at the consistency Crimson has had since he tweeted out that he was burnt out in the leagues. You can tell this man has been prepping hard, has been playing hard, has been ready to go ever since. I really appreciate the cheeky Tangler bring. He broke early in the early game with Kangaskhan, which is really, really nice to see, because Kangaskhan normal is a mon that's often underused or undrafted. So I like the way he was using that. Obviously, I've said the cheeky Tangler bring, and that clutch priority in the end game, getting him the win with Infinite was absolutely awesome as well. Now, I think that's my sort of analysis on the game, but we just have to just appreciate Crimmy Papa this week. If we can get a hand clap in the comments for Crimson, he deserves it. Go tweet him on Twitter, show him some support, but that's why I have to have Crimson down here though. I did gas him here, and you're gonna be like, yo, why are you doing that? But I just have to show appreciation for a coach who was clearly burnt out and has put so much effort in and has had a massive rejuvenization. We'll throw one of those in.
In my number 11 spot this week, I decided to put the Montreal Habsols, coached by Asta J. And I think Turbo, in the words of my friends at the Hive, is a bit juiced this week, thinking that Crimson should be above Asta. Yes, Asta did take a massive setback this week, realizing that Nilahiglu is not a Pokemon when prepping. However, I do think the hacks did matter a little bit, because he would have his Zapdos around as another Nilahiglu sack. And I think as well, when we look at the context of the overall season, he's played extremely well. In the latter parts of this season, mustering up a clutch win against, Tom last week, taking that 1-0 comfortably. He's also currently sitting at 4 wins, and I perceive that none of them are against the bottom 2 teams, which I'm quickly going to check because I like being right. Oh no, sorry, he's had 3 wins, and those 3 wins against teams that aren't in the bottom 2. 1 against Jolt, 1 against Wolf, 1 against Tom, and 1 against Necro. So when we look at that from, he's taken some big L's, and unfortunately, week 2 Asta played this week, mirroring an 0-5 loss the first time. And I think when you look at something like that, you've really got to, especially when any Beast Boost mod, as my friend Turbo has, discussion videos on time and time again, Pokemon that can have an ability just to take control of the game by setting up, not even setting up really in a Beast Boost case mod where you can just go special attack boost every time. The Drift Plume caught him off a little bit off guard. However, I do think that putting the Zapdos in against the Slurpuff when Turbo has clearly shown that Slurpuff gets Endeavor. He showed us against Carney Hobo that. So it's important to look at those things when building the team, because, like, for example, his Melody got really weakened down really hard. However, where was Gorgeist? I think Gorgeist could have been a really nice bring this week, or Mudsdale, that he loves bringing, to beat the Nilahiglu. However, shoutouts to Megalopony being, on the top kills with going 17 kills and 7 deaths. That's all I really have to say about Asta J, or also known as Iron Flash Gaming's #1 fanboy.
I mean, I think Asta really fell down the weeb hole this week. Shout out to anyone who gets that reference. But coming in at the spot above, I've lost count already, because as we've already established in this video, I can't count. We have the San Francisco Giants. Now, him and the Milwaukee Brewers, who I have up and above each other, played some interesting games this week. Both of them have a very similar situation where their opponents are confirmed for playoffs, and those two are still in the fight for playoffs. Gio, in this sense, has to beat Envy, because otherwise he is genuinely confirmed out of playoffs, and Gio's playoff contention hopes are in his hands, which is a bit more to say than Wolfie's playoff contention hands. So Gio in this game, I'm going to have some controversial opinions. Envy fanboys, please look away. Here's your warning. Gio played Gio played like the absolute GOAT this game. Anyone who tells me this game was won on hacks, you clearly don't understand like the method of the game. But Gio played every turn. If you watch this game, Gio played every turn in order to win on that last turn. Once he lost his Mega Scissor turn 1, a lot of players would just crumble and lose to the team that Envy built. Gio lost his Scissor turn 1, which puts him at an instant disadvantage, and then played every turn impeccably to bring him to that last situational turn in which that pincer faced up against the other pincer, and the item that he specifically put on there instead of Choice Scarf in order for him to win the game, won him the game. So you can't turn around and tell me that was a win on hacks because Gio effectively prepped to beat Envy's team. Also, if you reverse this and Envy did this to Gio, I already know there's going to be a load of 12-year-olds getting happy, jacking off in the comments, saying, oh my god, Envy is the Heat Lord, but you guys have got to take that L. Gio has come out with double explosion quick claw and has turned Envy's microwave heat into a volcano-style eruption heat levels. Shout out to the Giantes. He's got volcanoes in his background. I reckon Gio played very, very well this week, and people can't tell me it's a hacks win because he put that item on specifically to win in a situation like that, and it worked. So don't tell me it's hacks. Shout out to that. I'm going to get so much hate for that section, but I will take it. Bird, who have you got on that level?
Envy's average fan base, they're quite clearly Rick and Morty fans because they understand the heatness of the Heat. But here's where I agree with you, and here's where I disagree with you. Yes, Gio built a fire team this week. Focus Punch, Mew, Explosion. He clearly watches Zazzle in the GPC. That's how you beat the top dogs. Explode in their face. And the real criticism I have with Gio this week is not just the nature of how he won, but you're going off an item's chance that's like, I think, 60% that the Envy fanboys said in the comments. And Envy fanboys, they're never wrong. So I'm trusting them wholeheartedly that it's 60%. But it's like saying he played each turn well, but it's like it doesn't sit right with me, to be honest. As an Envy fanboy, I can take an L when it's a legitimate loss to someone like Jolt, where outplayed, outprepped. But this week, I just don't see it, to be honest. I think you watched a different game. I'm just upset that Envy's quite clearly non-existent focus band didn't prop to win the battle. Imagine if that happened. Every one of my Envy fanboys, Rick and Morty fans, would be praising Envy. Focus bands, the new set. However, I do think this is like when Cooper ran Swagger in the earlier seasons, and I think it's time to ban Quick Claw. My friend David, right? He was in this league once where they allowed Bright Powder, and he brought Bright Powder Mimikyu every game to win cash money. I understand the hustle to win games, and I appreciate the hustle of winning games. However, when these GBA matches are a matter of life and death each week, some coaches will break under the mental pressure of the importance of the GBA. You can't rely on an item that's so flaky as Quick Claw. It's just, I can't. It just doesn't sit right with me. I can't accept the win for Gio, but I respect the win. It's just, I have a Gio complex this week.
I mean, I'll just throw a little question out there to the comments now. You boys definitely run Schooled for that chance of burn, right? That's why we run Schooled over Surf. So if you get that burn right and it wins you the game, are you taking it? The answer is yes. So if that 20% chance of the Quick Claw pop in wins you the game, what's the difference? But that's just me. That's just me. But let's jump into the next highest opponent, the next position above, and I have the Milwaukee Brewers. Now I've already mentioned these two games were an interesting one because Gate is already confirmed for playoffs, and Wolfie, unlike Gio's, playoffs hopes are in other people's hands. So all Wolfie can do is win out, but he needs other people's results to go their way. Spoilers, considering if you're watching this video, you probably know what's happened. They didn't go his way, but. The Milwaukee Brewers Gator game this week was a bit of a mess because ironically it had this game is going to timer written all over it. Usually when you have two live comers play each other, the games are going to be long anyway, and then just the way that the two teams were constructed at prep, no matter what anyone did in the game, this game was destined to go to timer. It just was going to happen. So the fact that Gator was taking longer on the plays, if you watch the Wolfie's side, because Gator didn't do a live com for this game because apparently his live commentary wasn't as good as if he could have post-commed it. But if you watch Wolfie's side, who did live comment, you will see that Gator takes more time thinking about his turns, which in turn makes a lot of sense, because then if you watch Gator's half, Gator explains the very, very complicated way he has to break Wolfie's expertly prepped and played Jellison, and that's why what Gator was taking lots of time taking the plays. Even then, Gator knew he was on the losing stretch once he saw max speed Jellison, so he could have been using timer to his advantage as well, which of course is a legitimate playstyle. Again, don't at me on that one, but Wolfie played really well this week. I loved the Jellison set. He just did what he needed to do to win the game. I've already established it was going to timer anyway, so all he had to do was not sack a load of stuff and play the Jellison effectively, and that's all he needed to do to win the game. So Gator got caught in some hot jelly, or some cold jelly, if you want to call it that way, and that's why I've got the Milwaukee Bears in this position, right in the mid-tables.
Right in the mid-table is at number 9, apparently. 16 divided by 2 is 9. Thank you, Turbo, for some quick maths.
Quick maths every day.
My number 9 was the world champion Wolfie Glick. And I think that this game was my favourite of the week to watch from Gator's side. But that's a bit later on. That's a bit more spicy. The Jellison was a really nice bring. The thing I really enjoy about Wolf's prep each week is it breathes a fresh air into the community, where he runs mons like Tangrowth offensively, like he crept the Azu, for example, the max speed Jellison. And the thing I admire about Wolf this week was he didn't look to take the game to timer. And you see that by his body language in his video. My boy Wolfie this week played a really nice game. The max speed Jellison was a really nice bring, and he really breathes a breath of fresh air into the community when he comes to his prep. It brings a really diverse prep each week. Like, for example, the Sunny Day offensive Tangrowth against Tom. And this week we saw his use of max speed Jellison with the Taunt, where where Gator is forced into that hazard war. And I mentioned time and time again when you look at prep, the hazard war and how important that is. The Citrus Berry Florges at the end, I know that Gator didn't really understand, but I've watched a bit of Rick and Morty Spanner last week, so I'll just explain the play. He had a way to get back up his hazards, Gator didn't, so I think it was a really nice play considering how much damage he was taking from the hazards. And he's really formulating some really nice plays each week, and that's where we're looking for each week, is how do we rank these coaches objectively? And when Wolfie's putting in performances like that, it's really appreciated. I know that he recently mentioned that if anyone above him in the playoff race wants to drop out, he'll gladly take their spot. But come on, Wolf, you're a VGC expert. You know that you have to go X2 to cut for the top cut. Disappointment.
I'm Bird with the cheeky little VGC reference there. But I'm going to jump into Mono. Now, Mono 2 has had probably my biggest drop and your biggest drop of the season. The reason I got Mono this low is because, again, as per usual, the top 8 is just a cluster of absolute dudes just going and winning and losing against each other and forcing us to interchange. And we probably had the most interchange out of a top 8 in probably any power rankings ever in the last 3 weeks of the season, which is quite interesting. And I kind of like that. But Mono this week was really caught off guard by the breaking power of this banded Incineroar. Now, I've had a couple of people PM me questions like, why is this Incineroar allowed Intimidate? Just to clarify, because it is tiered format, Intimidate would not affect Incineroar's tier, and therefore John is allowed to use it. And Incineroar is showing that it is actually a reasonably draftable and useful mon. That banded Darkest Lariat doing a lot of damage with, as obviously the self-proclaimed GOAT, Blunder says, Dark being one of the top 2 offensive typings in this generation. And we all know Blunder is the absolute expert in the game. But talking about that, the Mono prepped the way he needed to. I mean, he expected a more defensive team from John, and brought the Slowking, which John had nothing for in this game, and he did manage it very, very well. He just was caught off guard by a few little cheeky techs like that Outrage, I think it was the Outrage Garchomp, and basically lost in the game because once those big threats were down, John just basically picked up a win. Mono has now put his playoff sort of chances at risk with this loss, which is interesting. So he's got to make sure he plays out well in the end of the season because he could drop out, but let's see how the Tampa Bay Luxuries do. But what are you saying?
Well, firstly, actually, I think it's something like, for example, Wolf has to win next week and Mono has to lose. I think if they understand how the conferences work.
Yeah,
by
I think
at
you're
least
right.
four differential each way. So Mono realistically this upcoming week just has to play for differential. You know, it doesn't matter whether or not he loses. You know, like the way that it would really suck is if Wolf won 6-0 and Mono lost 1-0, and that way he went out. But I think that he can make playoffs. Now, the reason why Mono dropped a lot, I think, for both of us, was when we look at player skill each season, Mono is generally perceived to be top 3, top 4 of the GBA. So I think when it comes up to an opponent against John, I really disagree with the way they've allowed Incineroar to have Intimidate in the league. I understand that it's a tier system, but Intimidate Incineroar is such a threat. I know how good Incineroar is. I see Greg laughing in the background. Adrenaline Orb, Incineroar! I see you in my power regulator. But I think that the way that Mono's teams the last few weeks have really confused me why he's being so passive. You know, he has something like Charizard X, and has such a big breaking presence that he doesn't bring. And that's what sort of worries me a little bit. He's playing very passive. And I think when you come to, especially the top of the GBA, these dudes are playing super aggressive. They're playing so calculated. And I think that that's where you need to start looking at. I don't think that you're going to outstall the dudes at the top. And that's why Mono is my number 8. Also, the fact that he did lose to a potential rival in the first round of playoffs being Pokemon. But I have heard a conspiracy theory saying tactical throw, but I highly doubt that for Mono.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard maybe Mono just wants that free win round 1 of the playoffs playing Chimp, because Chimp never gets past the first round of the playoffs. But that's another question to be answered. But anyway, I want to talk about my next team, which is John, aka...
Why do you say play Chimp when I said it was John?
Well, I'm saying...
That's weird.
Is it? Oh.
Where's playoff picture? Need the playoff pictures.
Need the playoff. Analysts need playoff picture. But in at the place above them, we have the New Orleans Pelicans at number 7. Now, this is the team that all of you guys seem to think that I absolutely hate, and it's not true. But
true.
It's just not true. The reason I've got John here is John managed the game really, really well. He's not been picking up those spectacular wins. He has been... Okay, he had the longest win streak in the league for a while. And watch week 6 for the power ranking. Was it week 6? Week 8? But when did you put him first?
I don't know, but it's not my concern how underrated you put my good pal Pokemon.
Anyway, John played a really good game this week. His prep was really, really effective. He brought a really, really offensive team, which is a risky move considering his playoff chances at the start of the game were at risk because of that loss to Wolfie. But he brought an offensive team because he thought it was what was going to win him the game, and it did. It really worked as well. The Bandit Incineroar, like we said already, worked really, really well. The Garchomp tech with their Z Outrage was beautiful as well, because the Outrage Garchomp is a threat because it's almost it's doing 70% to basically everything, bar like fairy types and or fat steals, which is no drawback in my opinion at all. The New Orleans Pelicans shown what they can do in the final season of the GBA. Some people pushing in for titles, but they haven't played on the caliber of the 6 teams above them, and that is why I have them consistently around this mark. And it's not because I hate them, so stop saying I hate John in the comments. I filled out a mini or madness bracket.
Why do you hate John so much?
Oh my god. I filled out a mini or madness bracket, so I can't hate John. I watched that video. Go watch it. Do your brackets. But that's just a plug.
Oh. Wait, turbo plugging someone else besides himself in the power rankings? Can someone time how long it takes Turbo to self-plug? I don't think he's done it so far. So my 7 is the big doggy himself, TTM Jolt. My boy Stab, he's standing outside an empty stadium with his sign up, Jolt for GBA champion. He's looking like a tired old man. Put him in the Dementia Ward at this rate. This week against really struggled with rematches this season. Lies again in playoffs, but I think that always you have to bring your best team each week. I know that certain coaches like Zazo have always said that like the last 3 or 4 weeks, once you've clinched playoffs, it doesn't matter unless you have like a big dog to face again. The real question I have is why does he prioritize damage over hazards this game when hazards was so important in the long run? Especially when you consider how good Tailwind Tornadus is. I remember my boy Turk learnt that the hard way in the MPL Miners playoff thing, where he lost to Uzi. So that really did hurt him in the long run over the short term, as the only real misplay Jolt made in my eyes was why did he sack the Hydreigon instead of the Gardevoir to the Manectric? Because I thought Scarf E-Power wouldn't have O-code the Delphox, but you could always play for the crit. I know that Jolt is a very integrity-focused man, and that I really respect the fact he didn't want to flinch Lars down. However, if this is playoffs Jolt, I want to see some Haxie wins because, Trev still takes the title that he stole from you as a legitimate trophy, so that counts.
Fair enough. Another team that people have been saying I have too low is the Bronx Beartics. Now, of course, Joey has been an absolute tear this season. He has had probably the biggest rejuvenation of any team this season. He played just a completely dominant game versus Aaron, not even Aaron, just Aaron, Cybertron Zeng this week, and he was making the big boy plays. He didn't even need to make the big boy plays, actually. He was just like, he had Aaron's life story, the book, and he had it open, and he was doing his weekly reading session where he just read every single play, and he made all the plays that he needed to. I see you ripping off that Fire Blast Gyarados, hashtag Pokeguru Drama TTM, with the little cheeky flamethrower Gyarados, but the special Gyarados was pretty heat, if you do have to say so yourself. I liked how he got really excited that he could be top player of the week when the Thunder came off, and then Geo comes out and pulls out double explosion quick claw. So sorry, Joey, but I mean, he just played a really, really effective, really, really commanding win, and he's put himself in good stead to almost beat Geo to playoffs. He just can't choke it out on the last week. So let's see if Joey can swallow his food and get it down into the playoffs. Who have you got in that number 6 position?
It's good to know that Pokeaim swallows. My number 6 is Lars. He's continued to live up to the initial Dark Horse tag by using Tailwind Tornadus Eye in the end game, which I thought was a really nice bring. He didn't seem phased this time that he played Jolt, and he played really commanding. The way that he uses Scarf Cabellion to effectively limit one of Jolt's biggest offensive threats. The AV Delphox, he has been watching Styx, I think, because Styx likes to bring Delphox each week to that NU League, and this week we saw the AV Delphox. I know my boy Omega Jolteon, he's going to be upset that it wasn't Fizz AV Delphox. I'm sorry, Omega, he has failed you. But he played really well again this week, and he's continued to live it up to this hype. He could realistically be a top 3 coach, but the issue has been his form. He did lose last week to Envy, I think it was, but then again, he put in a very respectable performance against Envy, and he has done for most of the season. And I think that, everyone in my top 5, top 6, top 7 even, realistically has a really good shot at winning playoffs. Actually, no, I want to fix that bit. Sorry. I think realistically, everyone's still in the hunt for playoffs or has locked playoffs, has a really good shot at winning the GBA this season, and I think it's anyone's game. So just because Lars is number 6 on my power rankings doesn't mean he doesn't have a shot, because I think that Lars could bring in some really good performances like this one this week. So let's see what happens come crunch time.
Fair enough. I have the Kansas City Giraffe Chiefs above Joey. Now, we have talked about Joel and the curse of the rematch. It will be a better film than Harry Potter. Trust me. Just Jolt and the curse of the rematch. You go for any of Jolt's games, and my guy can't deal with a pre-playoffs rematch. But there's a very, very specific reason. Jolt, I think, doesn't intentionally lose those games, but he plays those games in a less optimal way, like he said in his commentary, to scout out what the opponents want to do. Because very often, if you're a team that needs to make playoffs in that position, because Jolt is already up there, always up there. So when these rematches come around, he sits there and he's like, right, they've got to bring a strat that's semi-good or slightly better than the strat I can bring against them. I'm going to scout them all out. It's going to give me some more team building ideas, and then I'm going to absolutely duke them in the playoffs. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen because of the way Jolt plays this game. So it's very difficult to rank Jolt because he's lost his last couple of games, but they're against potential playoff opponents, which he probably would have done better not to bring his like excellent strats to. And actually, that's probably saying something of everyone in this top sort of 5 other than Lars. So I'll mention that briefly, and maybe Chimp as well. So that's a thing when it comes to Jolt. Like you said, he could have played for the hacks in the end game, but I mean, I think his main goal this week was not to win, but to discover more about Lars' team. I think he did that effectively, so he kind of copped a W in that sense, but a win would have just been a bonus. I think that's the sort of game he played this week. So I'm not dropping him too far because he doesn't deserve to drop too far. It's just a very, very difficult game to rank because he didn't go out there looking to absolutely tear his opponent apart. He went out there to look for specific sets and learn about a team, and I can respect that because it's a very, very viable playoff strategy. Coming into the top, let's Bird, take us into the top 4, or if you haven't done your 5, I don't know. Talk about it.
I have not done my 5. Stop trying to censor Pokemon. Gosh, Turbo,
that's
you
right.
already.
That's so convenient.
No,
that's so convenient.
Why are you trying to censor my good pal Pokemon? Pokemon is number 5 this week because he's played a really good season. He's taken his conference at the top, and considering that his conference at one stage was considered one of the harder conferences, I just want to give a big shout out to the Alpha Ranger 3. Good lord, you people do not like John, do you? I love John. That's why he's number 5. He played really well against Mono, as I said earlier on commentating against Mono. Mono brought a really defensive team, whereas Pokemon brought a really offensive team. He's really benefited from the hidden ability of Incineroar, which has allowed him to bring Choice Band, and the PTSD kicked in for me when I saw Mono lose to that Incineroar. So I think that Pokemon has had a really good season so far, and he's continuing a form of dominance. He did have that shock upset to Wolfie last week. However, we are seeing him bounce back. So let's continue the Pokemon hype train for Alpha Ranger 3 in the comment section. That one's for you, buddy. Number 5 Pokemon.
Choo choo. Anyone for the Pokemon hype train. But let's go into my number 4, and that is the Philadelphia Sizzles now. Chimpact, again, like I said, Chimpact and Lars, the only 2 in this sort of top 5 that didn't play a game, which completely didn't affect their playoff chances. So they're sort of the ones that legitimately ranked. Chimp brought what he needed to bring to win the game. He dunked on Asta week 2 of the season when Asta brought a whack team, and Asta brought a slightly more logical team this week, and Chimp dunked on him 5-0. Just shows like we showed some doubt in the pact. We showed some doubt. We were seeing a bit of a doubt pact, or some choke pact, or tilt pact as well. He got a few of those nicknames, but he is. You see in the anime arc, right? The hero has got to go on a low. He's got to have a high. He's got to look like the OG, and then he's got to get smacked up by someone. He's got to get absolutely beaten up, and then he's got to rise from the dirt, and he's going to then put in the work, right? I'm pretty sure that's like every anime arc ever, right? So that's exactly what Chimpact is doing. He played off early, he played well, he was getting those wins, but people were seeing the errors, right? Then Gator comes through with the darkness and smacks him up, right? And then Chimpact is like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm going to come through, I'm going to bring in the Helego that makes sense, that doesn't have bind, and I'm going to get that 5-0 victory. I'm going to baton pass with a brilliant genius gimmick with that drift blim, and I'm going to give it to Nihilego, and I'm going to absolutely just shaft Asta's team. That's exactly what happened. I mean, he showed his skills, he showed his super plot armor, dodging that Aquatel turn 1, because only GOAT players can get that 10% chance to dodge, and then just went on to win the game from there, stealing my Sash Slurpuff set, because it's my set. It's not the standard set, as the Sizzles front office thought it was. It's my set, but we can talk about those another time. But shout out to Chimpact for coming through with a completely domineering win after we chose some doubt from him on a serious note. And that's all I can say, really. Confidently into the playoffs with this victory as well. So let's see how if Chimp can actually not go out of the first round of the playoffs, as I made that joke earlier. But who is your top 4?
I hope you GBA fans at home have kept the counter going, because Turbo just plugged himself. That's an infraction right there. I want to see how long he's lasted. But my number 4 is Gator. Now, I know my man Turbo loves Gator. He loves Gator. He loves alligators. But I don't have Gator at number 1 because Gator this week lost to Wolfie in a game that it doesn't sit right with me, the way he uploaded that video. Not gonna lie. I think the way that the battle timer was turned off from his video, I appreciate the shortness of the video, I did watch it from Gator's side, and then when I watched it from Wolfie's side, just due to some of the comments on it. But the max speed, Jellison, and the way that he had to play the taunt shenanigans and all that, and when Gator identifies that time's going to be a massive factor in the game, when I was looking at it from Wolfie's side, Wolfie seems to lock his moves just that slightly bit quicker than Gator, and I have said before with Geo that watching turn timer is something very important to any player, because that's one of the drawbacks of playing on Wi-Fi versus Showdown. But you have to remember that the GBA primarily is a Wi-Fi league. It's meant to be over in 60-minute battle time. And when it comes down to this game, as I said earlier, Gator doesn't understand why, why does Wolf defog away the hazards with Florges when he can get up his rocks again? And he plays really, really nicely, limiting a lot of Gator's offensive options just with that Jellison alone. The Stomping Tantrum, Sacred Flyer, Rest Talk, Ente was a really cool bring and shows how Gator was put on a bit of the back foot by Wolf's really diverse prep. So I think that's why he's really my number 4 this week, in contrast to Higher. But don't worry, if you're a Gator fanboy, Turbo's still got him at number 1.
Whoa. It's not like they can see the pit. Actually, can they see the picture already? Shout out to the GBA for these strange graphics. Shout out to Bill Standish for these
No, you can't, because it's 4, not 3.
Oh, great spoilers there. But actually, no, I'm talking about my number 3 anyway, so I'll change the slide. Shout out to Future Turbo, who's doing the editing. But at number 3, I have the Borussia Dortmund, the only other team that had to play for their playoff chances this week. And now, what Lars did this week is he identified his win condition, and he identified the mon that would completely tear through his team if played incorrectly. So what he did was he's like, whoa, that Durant is going to absolutely tear me a new butthole if I play this wrong. And what Lars did was he managed the game very, very effectively around that Durant and ended up winning. So Lars played almost a perfect game there. I said a couple of weeks ago, when the pressure turns on, Lars gets ready, he has a beer. I think he was drinking Coke in the video, just keeping relaxed, getting ready, and then playing the game really, really well as well. So shout out to Lars for that. I think that he is using the worst Mega in the game, Mega Manetric, don't at me, very, very effectively. Lars is going to at me for that statement as well. So it's very good when you've got a Mega that's subpar to everyone else's and you're still managing to use it very, very well as well. So that's okay. I mean, I think that Lars is a strong candidate for this. I mean, there's a lot of dark horses this season. I really shouldn't call Lars a dark horse, because I've called about 4 teams dark horses by now. But if we're talking about the teams that are actually confirmed for playoffs, I feel like Lars is one that not many people will vouch for, but should be strongly considered as going reasonably far. I think is the best way of describing it, because he has shown in these weeks that he's got better than last season. He's shown improvement. He's now identifying win cons and identifying strategies to work around those win cons and not take the mons that destroy his team. So shout out to Lars for that. Keep doing what you're doing. That's my number 3.
Yeah, but Turbo, what's the difference between Mega Manetric and yourself?
Don't know. What is the difference between Mega Manetric?
Mega Manetric's won on March Madness.
That's right in the feels, man. That's right in the feels. Retweet if you cry every time. Can we get some justice for Turbo in the comments?
If you lose to Turbo in March Madness, you win the tournament. Change my mind.
True.
So my number 3 this week, and I've mentioned time and time again, a team in form is one I want to see. And you know what? PokeAim MD has seen not just the wins come out of the woodwork recently, but also the fans. The way that he played against Aaron this week, even being robbed of top play is a crime in my eyes. That Thunder play was amazing. However, the way that he read Aaron this week, oh my lord, he could teach the blind. He could probably teach Stevie Wonder how to land a punch on Floyd Mayweather this week. Not gonna lie, he played impeccably. Gypsy King, yet again, that leaky that he picked up has been absolutely incredible for him ever since he picked it up. The way that he's used Ryan Wish to ensure that turns make longer and things like that. But this week he brought, some really nice offensive plays. Mega Gyarados proving why it is one of the best Megas in the GBA and one of the fan favorites of the GBA fans. I think we've seen from about week 4 or week 5, I don't know, whenever his win streak really started, his approach to team building has really changed from that whole Toxic Spike as leader Solgor to DD, double DD to win. And that really has impacted him. That really has helped him gain some really crucial victories. And that's what I like to see. My boy PokeMMD picking up the W's. Cool. It is Necrozma.
You've done some bad impressions, but that was awful. Coming in my number 2. Now I'm saying it now, and I'm not changing my mind. I will sit there like the meme, change my mind. I'm not switching the top 2 up, mainly because their respective games this week were interesting at best. Both of them didn't have to win to do anything else. Obviously, they didn't intentionally lose, but both of them. Well, Envy was trying to stunt, and I don't know what Gator was doing. We'll talk about Gator in a minute, but Envy was trying to stunt this week. He brought some heat, if you can call 3 attacks Empoleon heat. I mean, go for it, but I don't think it was. I think that I've already said what I needed to say about this match. I think that if you look at Geo's plays, there is not one play in that game that you can say that Geo didn't make the optimum play in that situation. And that is the reason the game turned out as it is. As much as Envy said at the end of the video, 20% chance. Like I said, ironically, Geo took Envy's hyper-aggressive no-scout playstyle and completely just used it upon him with double explosion. And then I feel like if you're going to play hyper-aggressively and you get caught off guard and lose 2 of your mons because of it, like he did to Geo turn 1 with the Mega Scizor, which may probably deter Geo from bringing Mega Scizor ever again if they do playoffs. As I feel like Envy don't need to prep for Mega Scizor because it's just not going to come, because you can see you've shown that dominance over there as well. That if you're going to play that play style and it's used against you, I think that's the way that Geo has overcome him this week. I mean, Geo needed the win more than Envy did. I don't feel it fair to move Envy at all. So that's why he's at number 2. Who have you got number 2?
My boy Chimpact. Your favourite, Turbo. Now, I want to give a big shout out this week to Don Malona. He's always in the comment section. He's always in my DMs. He's telling me. He's been coaching me. He said, you've got to understand what's going on inside Chimp's head. He said there's going to be good things that come. He said good things come to those who wait. And he was right. This week, Chimp, Asta just didn't look like the guy that's first in the NPL at the moment. He looked like he was on the beach. The way he absolutely dominates the battle. Turn 1, clutch dodge. That's where the top dogs really make their best plays. They dodge the Aqua Tails turn 1. And then the Endeavor set really catches Asta off guard. The way in which Driftbloom comes in, sets up the stockpile. And then Baton passes into that Nihilego, allowing him to effectively turn Asta's team of 5 at the time to a team of sacks. And that's where the big dogs come through. Chimp has said that this is going to be his last season in the GBA. And it's a shame to see one of the top dog competitors leave, especially at a critical point of competition. Yes, earlier on in the season, I questioned what Chimp was doing with his Registeel counters being the binary league, but Don Malona, every week in the comments, he's been letting me know, in my DMs, letting me know that Chimp is destined for greatness. So, and I hope my boy Don Malona, the #1 Chimpact fan, he may get the last laugh as I've been backing a new team every week.
Jesus Christ. And coming in my number 1, Bird spoiled it. It's Gator. The game was a mess. Like I said, Gator tried to play the timer as well as just coming up with it. I mean, the reason I'm giving Gator credit this week is because he came up with the perfect and only way of dealing with that Jellicent, which was the double taunt, double switch into Heatran to try and get a Toxic. Which is just insane. Like, some people who have a set that will just beat them will just tilt. But really, really decently, Gator actually used the time he had, thought about his plays, and you could tell from Wolfie's side of the picture, and actually tried to work out how to beat this thing that was going to rip his team to shreds, which I have to give him credit for. Gator in this game showed a calculated strategy to try and beat that, although it effectively didn't beat it in the end game. Or it did enough damage to his team to stop Gator from winning the game. I have to accept that. I mean, in contrast, Gator's sort of scouting first play style, it really shows the difference between if you scout and then sort of play around the threats to Envy's throw his man sausage on the table, and if it gets chopped off, it gets chopped off, and it did get chopped off this week. And I think that's the difference. If Envy plays one more double switch or plays, I don't know, just like almost has a look what something can do, preserves his Empoleon, or doesn't try and thrust in, as one may say, then I feel like this could be a completely different story. But that's Envy's biggest weakness, I think, is this complete lack of scout play. Whereas Gators played the scout play game. He had a methodical way of sort of breaking down a team that was going to shaft him completely. So I have to respect Gator for that, but I'm not moving the top two because of the complete messes of their retrospective games, as well as just the lack of importance on the retrospective games on their front. Those retrospective games were more to show off their opponent's skill, and both Geo and Wolfie did that, and I believe that I've rewarded them properly for it. That's why my top two is staying the same. I hope you respect that logic. Shout out to Bird going in for your number one. Who is it?
My number one, the big dog himself, Envy. Now, Envy this week, imagine your opponent brings the perfect C team, plays utterly perfect in the words of my fellow co-host, and you lose to Quick Claw. That is the skill of Envy. His opponent, A, needs to perfectly out-prep him. B, needs to make the perfect turn, or the perfect move every turn. And C, needs to hacks his way to victory over our Lord of the Heat, Envy. Now, my boy Burn, he's in the comments every week, and he's known for being, one of the original Heat members I used to watch. Like, he used to bring, like, Curse Mamo and things like that. And what he taught me this week was Focus Band could have saved Envy, right? But Envy's a man of integrity. He brings the best team possible to ensure that something like Quick Claw doesn't affect the outcome of the match too much. He's properly scouting. Some Ditto users I find like to use leftovers, and Envy unfortunately got a bit cucked this week by the Quick Claw. And Envy consistently throughout this season has made some big boy wins every single week. Besides the game against Jolt, he's thrown himself head first, using that Empoleon as like a war penguin or something like that, leading that offensive line. He's probably made the best turn one play against Geo every time. I saw the comments, HP Fire is 2-0 against Geo, and when you consider the dominance of a player like Envy, 85% win percentage in the GBA alone, you have to really question, who can topple Lord Envy, the man that discovered fire himself? That's the way that you have to look at this season. I don't care if, Envy puts in a lackluster performance in the eyes of Turbo, and he still has to be hacked out of his mind. It's just impeccable. I think he played a little bit too defensive this week, and somehow that's a weird criticism to have of the man who makes the most aggressive plays. He doesn't muck around. He doesn't negotiate with these people, and then he loses his Empoleon to a focus punch. That's probably the most ironic moment in GBA history. Envy losing a Mon to Focus Punch.
You mean the greatest moment in GBA history. But with that sentiment, I am going to close off this power rankings now. Just a quick thanks. Obviously, thank you guys for the comments and the support you've been showing in the weeks passing. We are loving all of it. You are getting some hot responses from both me and Burb in the comments, and we want to keep you leaving those comments down below. Shout out to the graphics guys who let you view this in HD quality with these beautiful graphics up there. Also, obviously, shout out to the co-host Bird, who is carrying me on his shoulders, teaching me how to count every week. Every single week. Why don't
you shout out the graphic guys by name? It's Grounded, Gliscor, and Bill Standish. Check them out. They both take commissions. They're some of the hottest graphic artists in the game. If you want to look like Lord Envy, but you're not him, You need to use the Bill Standish and Brandon Gliscor graphics to look as well as they do. Oh.
And finally, obviously, we have to shout out the coaches who put in the uploads every week at hot level content, some top level content going out every week, as well as shout out to every fan who watches the videos, because the GBA is nothing without the fans. Bird, have you got any closing sentiments?
Yeah, subscribe to itzTurbo, the Phoenix Midnights for D-League, as he keeps plugging himself.
Oh, Jesus Christ, we can't end it on that. So shout out to you guys. That's going to be this week's Power Rankings. A little long one. Out.
I have returned. And I shall expose the exploits of Tom Z. The worst coach with a Z in his name. All hail Coach Z. I bring to you, the loyal viewers of the GBA, fresh leaks. My evil sources tell me there is a certain application video dropping tomorrow. Yes, Friday. I haven't yet fully exposed what it is yet, but I do know it contains a D in its name. Tom Z, watch out, I am coming for you. Mwahaha.